And just for the purpose of our viewers, they can now see the slides, which sort of verify the numbers that you're talking about. So that has gone up. But okay, so let me bring on here again. If you look at those numbers, 600 billion naira a year to expand the grid, which people say has issues, is that, in your view, the best use of 600 billion naira, even if some of it is coming from private investors?
To be honest, I don't think it makes much sense. And you know what's been happening over the years is we tend to focus more on the grid side, spend a lot of money, from generation, distribution, transmission and distribution, and yet we do not have enough power to even go around. So I mean, just look at what's happening within the grid. People within the grid are still complaining that we don't have enough access, like you said. And I know there are low-hanging fruits in terms of extended or densification of the grid to make sure we get, to everybody within the grid. But if people within the grid are complaining that we do not have, stable power, just imagine those that are off-grid, that don't have access at all. And from an analysis that we've done, in the course of our program, about 55%, do not have access, to electricity. So those are the people that are off the grid. So we're only looking at 45% and spending so much money, to get electricity to 45%, of the people. So in my view, I don't think, aside from the issue of the, cost effectiveness of that, is also unfair to those people, off grid.
Chedu, what do you think about that? The unfairness of putting so much resources.
When we talk of off-grid, when we talk of access, see, I get the sense that Dr. Harry is talking about the rural communities alone. I thought we were talking about light electricity to Nigerians, and then which includes the urban and rural community. As far as the rural community is concerned, I think, and then the acting chairman of NERC is here, I think there's a concerted effort, and then I think I have people from Ministry of Power there to provide electricity through off-grid. That's the plan. But when we're talking about where there is grid in existence, are we going to abandon the transmission network? I don't think any responsible government will do that. We have investment in transmission network. We must make it work. And if we can make it work, I mean, it will provide light to Nigerians. I have an over 500 megawatts plant in Calabar. Am I going to distribute that through off-grid? It's not possible. It's not technically possible. It has to go through the grid to get to the consumers. It has to go on the 330, 132 kV and then step down to get to consumer. Am I going to do, and we have it all over the country. What do we do with them? Discard them and start all over again. So we need the transmission network. We need to restore it. We need to upgrade it to ensure that the available generation we have now gets to Nigerians. And that's the only way they can get to Nigerians. We can talk of off-grid, we can talk of embedded generation, 20 megawatts down, we can talk of 1 megawatts there. And that's what I say. In many estates in Lagos, they do off-grid. People supply to the estates, to the communities, they pay. They don't go through the grid network. So it's in existence. The opportunity is there, provided people can pay for it.
Before I get to the audience to become involved in this conversation, I have one last question, and I'd like anyone really in the panel to try and attempt to answer it. So is it a question of, because we don't want to waste, we have to expand the grid, or should we actually be looking to take the money and, if you like, build grids to support what we have already, or just keep the grid as it is and fortify it and then use that money to build? How do we decide what is more cost effective?
Well, to start with, I think it's important to expand the grid. Nigeria is growing. There is growing need of power. And we don't have to be static at where we are.
Could you build new grids that are sort of smaller and regional?
Well,
for example,
that is another thing which he has already discussed. Like for embedded generation, you can have mini grids that satisfy that arrangement. But as far as the national grid is concerned, that is the backbone of power transmission, and it has to be expanded to meet the requirements and demand of the Nigerian populace. We are talking of additional generation, whether it is government, whether it is private, it has to be expanded on a large scale. So for you to accommodate it, and like he said, for it to get to the customers, the grid has to be expanded.
So you are convinced that the only way for us to adequately address the shortage of electricity that we have is to go with this grid and expand it, as opposed to investing money in maybe building a new one completely, or building smaller ones, or that. Okay, so Dr. Ohiari.
Maybe just to correct an impression that Barrister Chedu gave, that we should focus, we should abandon what the investment in the grid. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we tend to be focusing too much on the grid side of things, spending so much money, doing so many regulations, yet things are not working. Just give equal attention to the off-grid side as well. That's all I'm saying. So because at the end of the day, just one technology cannot serve, the whole country. You need a mix. And it's only recently when the new minister came in that he started talking about having an energy mix and a plan, to see which technology should serve which area. So it's important to say, okay, expand the grid to decide more population clusters where people would pay for it. And then for little isolated, clusters, look at other technologies like having mini grids, solar home systems and all of that. So at the end of the day, you need a robust plan, for the country.
I have a question actually, and I'm happy for Chedu, so you're technical, you can answer that. From 1999 to date, we understand that Nigeria expended 2 trillion on the power sector generally, and we were able to get 2,000 megawatts increment in power generated and distributed. If we spent 2 trillion today on other energy sources, how much power could we generate and distribute? For the people who are, including people in the audience who are sort of technical, I'm happy for anybody to answer that.
I can't confirm that figure. I can't confirm the figure, but I can tell you straight away.
These numbers, by the way, that we've been using and that we use for the video came from the Office of the Vice President, because he's been the one, coordinating and putting together.
Okay, fine. But what I know is, I think the rule of the thumb is you spend about $1 million for a megawatt, and that is for gas thermal. So if you're going to coal, if you're going to hydro, you probably need a lot more in some cost, because that's hydro. You don't need a lot in O&M because it uses water and all that. So, but if we use the gas that we're used to now, if you're going to do off-grid, you need about $1 million for a megawatt, and then you're talking of off-grid, so you need maybe some modular, some 5 megawatts here and there, and all that. But that's if you're using gas. If you're not using gas, we're going to use other technologies. We're going to use, say,
wind,
diesel.
solar.
Yeah, wind, solar, they also come with their cost. They come with their cost. And solar, particularly, you have storage issues. I don't know where, at this level, the storage has not, is there, but it would drive up the cost heavily, because solar is, as my friend calls it, is very exotic. You have it during the day, you don't have it at night. So if you need to have it at night, you need to have the storage, and the storage is very, very expensive. So it drives the cost. So at the end of the day, is it going to be what the why of the consumers? It's something, unless they do direct to home, which again is open for them to do. And here, let me also point out that we at NDPSA right now, we are also promoting off-grid. We are doing solar home systems. In fact, we are rolling out about 20,000
I don't have a lot of time.